perhaps Congressman Marjorie Greene, who you have been pretty vocal in pushing back on, is getting your message, because yesterday she posted, quote, this, quote, "Our country deserves for Congress to vote for an impeachment inquiry for very important reasons, not a rush impeachment vote." That is a bit of a shift in the timeline, a little bit of a pumping of the brakes on it. What did you make of that?
Well, Marjorie filed impeachment, articles of impeachment on President Biden before he was sworn into office more than 2.5 years ago. So the idea that she is now the expert on impeachment, or that she is someone who should set the timing on impeachment, is absurd. The time for impeachment is the time when there's evidence linking President Biden, if there's evidence linking President Biden to a high crime or misdemeanor. That doesn't exist right now, and it isn't really something that we can say, well, in February we're going to do this. It's based on the facts. You go where the facts take you.
And there has been a search for that for some time, I think it's worth stating.
This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's own colleague in the House, Republican Ken Buck, pouring cold water on this idea that Greene should be the arbiter of all things Biden impeachment in the House. Not only because she's proven herself to have been crying wolf for months and months and months, thereby decimating any modicum of credibility she could have hoped to have, but also, and more importantly, because there is no predicate to impeach Joe Biden. The notion that Greene should litigate a timeline for accountability on an impeachment ignores the fact that a rationale for impeachment doesn't even exist. And don't take my word for it. Take, for example, the interview testimony from Devon Archer, the former business partner of Hunter Biden, who Republicans spent weeks hyping up as their star witness. They vowed and promised and swore up and down that Archer would provide damning evidence that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were involved in influence peddling schemes, only turns out that isn't exactly what happened.
He did describe that there were approximately 20 occasions over the course of their nearly decade-long business relationship where, when one of them called the other, that Hunter Biden would ask his father to say hello to whomever he was at dinner. He said there were some times when it was friends and sometimes when it was potential business partners or business partners. But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties, and there was a hello, and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business. And I think it's really important to remember that during this time period that we're talking about here, Beau Biden, Hunter Biden's brother and President Biden's son, became very ill with cancer and died. That was in the spring of 2015. And the witness described in vivid detail about how devastating that was to both Hunter Biden and to Joe Biden, and how their communications picked up dramatically in the aftermath, because Joe Biden was calling his son to check on him, and Hunter Biden was calling his dad to check on him. It had nothing to do with business, and that is the sum and substance of what the testimony was.
After the hearing, Goldman further tweeted, "I just left the interview of Devon Archer and I was the only member who stayed for the whole time. These are the facts. 1, Archer testified that Joe Biden never discussed any business with Hunter and his associates. 2, there was no bribe from Burisma to Joe or Hunter. This investigation has uncovered zero evidence connected to President Biden. In fact, the evidence is clear that President Biden had nothing to do with Hunter's business. The American people are tired of this wild goose chase, and I urge Representative James Comer to close it immediately." And just for good measure, if you really want to know how Republicans felt about this smoking gun testimony, listen to what Republican Andy Biggs had to say immediately afterwards.
Can you talk about the bribe at all? The $5 million bribe?
He didn't know anything about it.
He didn't know anything about that?
No, it was in 23. He didn't know anything about that.
Do you think today's testimony made it more likely that the president should be impeached?
I think we should do an impeachment inquiry. It's a different animal, but everybody doing it.
Let me repeat that if you didn't quite catch it. A reporter asked, did the witness talk about the bribe at all? Biggs responded reluctantly, and with his back to the camera, he didn't know anything about that, which only further backs up Goldman's detailing of what was said during the interview. So yeah, not exactly the victory lap you would expect from a Republican who just got the bombshell testimony that he was hoping for. All of which is to say, again, while I completely understand that Republicans want to impeach Joe Biden and that they have a majority in the House to impeach Joe Biden, what they're missing is the justification to actually do it. Time and time again, they trot out all of their Hail Mary plays, only to watch them fall completely flat. But here's the craziest part. None of that actually matters. They quite literally do not care that they've still yet to produce a scintilla of proof because they don't care about the proof. They just care about impeaching him for the sake of impeaching him. I mean, my God, Devon Archer literally offered them nothing. And instead of Republicans looking at that and saying, maybe we ought to rethink this, they just barrel ahead as if he just gave them the smoking gun evidence they were looking for. Facts don't matter and the reality doesn't matter. Their star witness could show up and say, Joe Biden 100% unequivocally, absolutely did nothing wrong, and still they'd be like, there it is, folks. Impeachment is clearly necessary and we're moving forward expeditiously. They live in a reality of their own making. What Republicans are attempting to do right now is the same thing they did with Benghazi and Hillary's emails and every other dead horse they've beaten ad nauseum. It's an attempt to muddy the waters in order to gaslight voters as to what's going on. They know that their cult leader, Donald Trump, is in serious legal jeopardy with 4 criminal indictments and 91 felony charges, and so they're working on his behalf by throwing as many things at the wall as possible, even if it results in situations like these, where their prized witness debunks the very basis of their own conspiracy theories. But their hope is that with enough right-wing disinformation and their media apparatus, they can confuse voters who are busy trying to live their lives and put food on the table. Their hope is that enough lower information voters throw up their hands and say, you know what? Both sides are equally bad and have their own legal issues, thereby neutralizing Trump's criminal indictments. It's a strategy as cynical as it is disgusting, but one that they absolutely rely on. And the fact is that it works. Republicans know that their supporters operate within a hermetically sealed media ecosystem, and so while they're free to make sweeping, unsubstantiated claims, when the fact check invariably comes along, they never get covered. And so as far as the Republican base is concerned, all the lies they heard were stone cold facts, because it's not about the truth, it's about the narrative. And when you have a political party with no shame, no scruples, and no accountability, they will gladly lie to their own supporters if it means it'll help them politically. And let's be clear, Trump isn't the only person to be helped politically by this. Marjorie Greene has hitched her political fortunes to Donald Trump's, meaning that if he thrives, so does she. In fact, just weeks ago, she said that she was aware that she was on a list of potential VP picks should Trump receive his party's nomination, saying, of course, that's up to him, but I would be honored and consider it. But my most important job is, of course, to serve the American people, and I'll help him do whatever in any way I can. Now does it make a little more sense as to why Greene is so intent on helping Donald Trump and perpetuating this bogus narrative that Joe Biden committed high crimes and misdemeanors? Again, this has nothing to do with reality and everything to do with helping herself, her brand, her consolidation of power, and her bank account. If there is ever any doubt about Republicans' intentions, just ask yourself whether they stand to gain anything by doing what they're doing. The answer will always, invariably, be yes. So any way you look at this, it becomes clear. The GOP has no evidence against Joe Biden, and the people perpetuating this narrative that he should be impeached anyway just so happen to stand to gain politically by saying what they're saying. So you can either listen to these Republican politicians or you can defer to the facts, but unfortunately, you can't do both. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.